Hello my friends, it's Robin. Today we are going to be wrapping up my summer TBR, seeing what I read, what I rated them, how well I did on my TBR, and then we are also going to go over my 5 favorite books of this past season. Little spoiler for this video, I read 9 out of the 10 books. The first book on my TBR was Lunatic by Onley James. This is the 6th book in the Necessary Evil series. No one is surprised, I gave this 5 stars. I just love this series so much, and I am so invested in this series and this family at this point. But this has one of my favorite things that I've learned about myself since starting the series, but I love a soft, submissive serial killer. Didn't know that about myself, but it's one of my favorite things about the series. This and Moonstruck have these really submissive serial killers that just want somebody else to take care of them, and I love it. The next book on this was A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Meadows, and I am very, very sad to report that I ended up DNFing this book. This was one of my most anticipated books for the summer. I thought for sure that this was going to be a brand new favorite. It just didn't work for me. I really liked the romance itself. Like, I was ready to live and die for this romance, but I did not understand the political stuff at all. Like, all the fantasy elements, the political maneuvering, all of that stuff went so far over my head. I was like 25% in, and I was like, I literally have no idea what these people are talking about. Like, none. I was like, I don't know if I can do this for another like 400 and some pages. Is I didn't understand. They were talking about locations and people that I didn't remember learning about, and it just didn't work for me, which I'm really sad about because it did have a really good romance. It dealt with abuse and trauma, and I liked all of those elements. It's just the fantasy part that it just didn't hit home for me. I read Love on the Brain by Hazelwood, and again, no one's surprised, I gave this one 5 stars too. This has literally nothing to do with how I felt about the book. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars, but I ordered this edition from Waterstones because it had these beautiful sprayed edges, and I was very excited for it, and it showed up with this on it, and I am so mad about it. And I ended up going to Barnes & Noble and picking out just like the traditional paperback. Why put this? I know she wrote The Love Hypothesis. I don't need a sticker on there. I know that this is not getting the same love that The Love Hypothesis did, and I'm not surprised about it. Not because this book is bad, but because Hazelwood has a formula. Just like other authors, she has things that she puts in every single one of her books. I could see like non-romance readers who loved The Love Hypothesis now picking this up and being like, well, this now all romances are the same, because this is very similar to all of her other books. The Love Hypothesis, all of her novellas. You have the tiny little heroine who is just mad at the STEM field in general because she needs to work 3 times as hard as all of her male counterparts, and she ends up meeting this grumpy, huge, adorable scientist who wants to help her take down the man, and there's some miscommunication between the two of them, and they are enemies because of said miscommunication, and now they're realizing that there was in fact miscommunication and it is their romance. And I know that that is not going to work for everyone, but I ate it up. I loved it. I love Levi. He's one of my new favorite heroes. I loved him a lot. From there was Wild is the Witch by Rachel Griffin, and this is Rachel Griffin's sophomore novel. It is the follow-up to The Nature of Witches, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked this one. It is a really fun, atmospheric, YA, witchy, enemies to lovers romance set in the Pacific Northwest. They are trying to find this owl who is cursed. Our heroine accidentally cursed this owl, and now her and the boy is at risk of being cursed need to go find this owl, and they realize that they had some misunderstandings and these preconceived notions about each other, and they have to work through a lot of that and face some of their own personal demons, all while tracking down this owl. It was really well written and beautiful and atmospheric, and I liked it a lot. Then we went into another polarizing one, and that is Husband Material by Alexis Hall. This book, man, it is getting 5 stars and it is getting 1 stars, and people are so mad about this this book, and I ended up giving it 4.5. I really liked it. I thought this book fit well with these characters, and I totally see why people hate this. In this one, they are attending a bunch of their friends' weddings, and along the way, they're starting to feel the pressure to get married. They are seeing their friends make these decisions and settling down, and they feel like in order to prove to each other and to everyone else that they are serious, that they need to get married. So they start planning their own wedding. Things kind of go from there, and it is very slow and character driven. You have to go into this book knowing that these two are messy disasters. After that was A Curse of Blood and Stone by K. Tucker. This is the sequel to A Fate of Wrath and Flame. I give this one 5 stars as well. I love this series so much. This gets nowhere near the amount of hype as JLA's book, but this is what I wanted those series to be, because this has the magical elements, the fantasy realm. It has the same type of like hero where they're like very misunderstood and dark. I liked it a lot. Like the whole secret vampire thing, I love that. This just does it so much better, in my opinion. The heroine is significantly less obnoxious, and I love where this book went. I already want to reread the series. I've read the first book twice already this year. I already want to reread both of them. After that, we have Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson, and I DNF'd this one. This book did not work for me in any regard. I hated the heroine. Not like, oh, felt weird about her. I hated her. From like page 3, she rubbed me the wrong way, and I could not get on board with her. And I don't usually need to like my characters, but in this case, I just didn't understand why she was the way that she was. We are following this heroine who goes to Florida to help her brother clean out their recently deceased father's home, and she's been kind of estranged from her family for quite a while, and she is getting her PhD in something. I don't remember, English maybe, but she's writing her dissertation on true crime and on like serial killers, and so she is kind of obsessed with true crime. And when she gets down to Florida, she has this really weird interaction because her neighbor steps outside and is like, hey, can I help you carry your desk inside? And she immediately accuses him of being a serial killer. From that moment on, is convinced that he is a serial killer, all because he came outside. And I couldn't get on board with it. Like I was like, I don't get that leap at all in any regard. Like, how did you get there? Her brother kept offering to help her clean the house. She was like, I must do it on my own. I was just like, but why though? So I didn't like her. She pushed everyone away. She was rude. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. On a far more positive note was These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Bryan, and I actually gave this one 5 stars. I love this duet. If you want just a easy, fun, fast-paced fae fantasy romance, I really recommend this duology. It is not the most eloquent or well-developed. There's no like themes and messages and stuff in here. It's just a good story. It's a really good story. I liked it. I liked where this book went. I liked the twist and turns. You kind of always know where this is going, but it still has one of my favorite love triangles like ever. It was so well done. I'm not going to go into the plot of this one, but in book 1, we're following a heroine whose sister gets sold to the Fae realm, and even though our heroine hates the Fae, she needs to go to the Fae realm to try and save her. And when she's there, she discovers that her best friend from the mortal realm is actually a Fae. The two of them have possibly a romance, but then there's this other Fae guy who she also might have a romance with, and it's a love triangle. There's rival kingdoms, and it's a good time. Like I said, there's nothing new about this. We've all read these stories before, but I ate up every damn word. And then we get into the one book that I did not read, and that is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. But here's the thing, is like I had every intention of reading this book, but nobody likes it. Nobody likes this book. And I kept seeing people read it on Instagram and hating it, and then seeing people read it for Kayla's book club and hating it. And then I would go to Goodreads and people would 1-star it, and I was like, I can't pick this book up. I'm going to hate it. And I couldn't get myself to read a book that everybody was hating and 1-starring. I didn't read it. 5% sorry. And then the last book was actually a bindup, and that was the last 2 books in the Deliver Us bindup by Pam Godwin, and I read both of them. I would say that together they're a 3-star. I think I gave one 3 and one 3.5. The series is so addictive, so messed up, but really good. I didn't love book 3 as much as books 2 in 1. So book 2, we are following the other human trafficker that we met in book 1, and he is possessive and obsessive. He ends up kidnapping this woman with agoraphobia, and he tries to break her to fall in love with him, and along the way he ends up falling in love with her, and it is their super messed up romance, and I really liked that one. Book 3 is the first woman who was trafficked in book 1. She has ties to the cartel. It is her second chance, like childhood friends, lovers, let's say, and it has to do with the cartel, and I didn't love that one. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. It just wasn't my favorite. I'm not a big mafia person, and I didn't really know it was gonna go there. So it wasn't everything I wanted, but it was still really good, and I do still plan to continue on. I need to get the next 2 volumes in this bind up. And so that is it for the summer wrap up. Like I said, 9 out of 10. 90%. I'm giving myself a passing rating on this one. I'm just gonna go over like a couple of stats. There is still some time left in the season. I think I still have like a week and a half until fall starts, but I read 42 books so far this summer, and 13 of them have been 5 stars, which I haven't done the math, but that's not a terrible average. I am going to grab my 5 favorites and I am going to rank them, and we are going to go from number 5 to number 1. We're going to talk about my favorite books of summer. We're going to start with number 5, and that was Lunatic by Onley James. I don't know what it is about this series, about this world, but I fall in love with them every single time. I love this family. I've already talked about this ad nauseum. In the number 4 spot is a duo, and that is the Fate of Wrath and Flame series. I reread this one, and I read this one for the first time, and I am just completely obsessed with this series. The series needs more hype. It needs more readers. K.A. Tucker's ability to make these fantasy stories not only well developed but easy to follow is perfection. Number 3 is The Dead Romantics by Ashely Poston, and I love this book. I talked about this in my fall recommendations, I believe, which I will link up in the cards and down below. I think that was the last video that I posted, but this is a ghosty romance that I just fell in love with. I cried in here. Our heroine is a writer and her hero is an editor. It's like slightly ghosty and magical and paranormal, and it's just beautiful. Number 2 is a book that I'm sorry I talked about this in every single video recently, but it's The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna, and this is witchy perfection. And then in the number 1 spot is the entire Salacious Players series. I love all of these. So I gave the first book 5 stars, I gave book 2 3.5 stars, I gave book 3 5 stars, and book 4 5 stars. This actually just got picked up by Source Books, so it is worth all of the hype. I'm such a Sara Cate stan now. We are getting one of the club members, I guess, in here that we've met a couple of times, as well as one of the performers, and I cannot wait. I love this series so much. Again, if you haven't picked this up yet, it is so sexy and steamy and just great. I love how sex positive this series is. I want like 100 more books in that series. So those are my favorite books of summer. I have my fall TBR coming next, so stay tuned for that. Very excited for all of the books on there. So let me know what your favorite book of the summer was, and I will catch y'all in my next video. Bye.